Hi, my name is Rebecca Lee, and I wrote this book, The Mercury Detoxification Manual, with Andy Cutler, PhD, who I always say when I do these things, should have got a Nobel Prize for what he figured out. It's a guide, this book is a guide on how to detox from chronic heavy metal poisoning without making yourself worse. And our support group on Facebook is packed with people who did just that. So before you make a move in the detoxing heavy metals department, be sure to educate yourself. And this book right here is a great place to start. So the biomedical industrial complex dissidents have started calling the new crackpot medical tyranny system we are now suffering under the quote cathedral. I wrote the following piece in 2020 before the whole COVID stuff started. The word, and this is what I wrote in 2020, the word idiopathic and the word iatrogenic are two medical terms I learned late in life. Idiopathic means nobody knows what causes it, and iatrogenic means it was caused by something to do with the medical system. So I had to go to the UVM Medical Center in Burlington the other day to get an ultrasound for my liver and a blood draw to see how said liver is doing. I had Hep C for a good 35 years, which was neither idiopathic nor iatrogenic. Hep C is a virus, which I caught somewhere in my feckless youth. The $85,000 treatment that killed the virus poleaxed me and sent me to bed for 2 weeks, and my eyesight has been slightly weird ever since. That was iatrogenic, but I thought it was worth the cost. I know a lot about alternative medicine. I prefer it to allopathic medicine because I worry that a pharmaceutical will change something drastic in my biochemical processes and mess with all the downline reactions that will cause some iatrogenic stuff, and the MDs will want to give me another drug to deal with it. It happens all the time. But I don't believe in throwing the baby out with the bathwater either. That $85,000 Harvoni, thankfully I was really poor at the time and the government paid for it, felt like somebody strong picked me up and shook me, but it put paid to that virus. The virus is gone now, at least I think it is. By the same token, I have enormous respect for surgeons. The 2 hip replacements I had were the best thing that I ever did in my life. I went from being in pain all the time and not being able to walk anywhere to being just fine. When I did the surgeries, I took every drug they told me to, including the rat poison, which thins your blood. And put yourself in the hands of skilled professionals, and you should do what they say. The trick is to figure out if they are really skilled or not. But up at the medical center, I have to ask myself, why is this place such a palace? Burlington used to get by with just Mary Fletcher and the de Gosbrian Hospital. There are a lot more sick people than there ever used to be. Most of these people are chronically ill too, and most chronic illness is idiopathic these days. How much is iatrogenic, though, is a good question. I know people are tired of me talking about the, quote, M word. My daughter even suggested I change the name of my company to something without the word mercury in it. It has become clear by now that I am engaged in some kind of arcane but legitimate endeavor, but she wishes I could sound less of a conspiracy theorist. Trouble is, I'm not wrong, and there is a conspiracy. Maybe a conspiracy of dunces to some extent, but still. When Amalgam Illness was published 20 years ago, Andy Cutler wrote that he thought between 1% and 6% of the population had enough mercury in their body to give them symptoms. Before he died, he had modified that to between 30% and 50%. Here in the States, the pharmaceutical companies are allowed to advertise on TV. Almost every drug flogged in these chirpy ads is for a condition that mercury can cause. The hospital is as enormous as an international airport. It has 3 or 4 levels in its parking garage, and they are always packed to the gills with cars. I used to think that all those sick people trailing in from the parking garage had got that way from bad food. The obesity, the gray complexions, the thinning hair, the low energy, and everything else I noticed from superficial observation. But now I think it is mostly from toxicity. Iatrogenic toxicity, and specifically chronic mercury poisoning, whose symptoms are legion. Andy Cutler called the medical use of mercury a, quote, breathtaking exercise in criminal irresponsibility. And he called the dental profession, in regards to its use of mercury, quote, a crime against humanity. I read that you can tell what is important to a culture by looking at the biggest buildings. In the Middle Ages, for instance, the biggest buildings were cathedrals. Perhaps the medical center is more of a cathedral than a palace or an airport. A cathedral of our new state religion, of science, with its holy priests running around with their white coats and their stethoscopes, with its holy sacraments, which I will not mention here for fear of getting censored. A large part of the economy runs on people getting sick, being sick. Most of the sickness is of the chronic idiopathic sort. A large part of the population has more mercury in them than they can handle. Mercury causes all manner of chronic problems. Don't take my word for it. Google the symptoms and find out for yourself. And it's easy to get exposed. The stuff is everywhere and is still being used medicinally by the health professions, more than ever, it would seem. So thank you, and please like and share my video and do all those good things you're supposed to do.